I was gonna say, so the timeline is a little bit different. So I didn't actually start working teleworking until October 16th, because I'm like, I was fixated on September because my grandmother's birthday is September 17th. And so I actually worked in the building from knowing. I found out, like I said, at the end of July, like the 26th, 27th, in that week. And then I stayed in the building the entire month of September and half of October, right? And I was telling you, like, my supervisor had me coming into the building and staying in my office pretty much. Like, I would attend like the meetings that they had, but they would have to have the meetings outside of the lab. What else? It would be a thing where I would come to work and help open up the vault. And once the vault was open, then it was like I would make small talk, because in my heart I knew, Jada, don't touch that work. I don't care how many sets of gloves you put on. I don't care how many layers of clothes you have on. I don't care how many masks you have on your face. Don't touch the work. Don't sit in the chairs. Don't lean up against the walls. Like, I had to remind myself of that, because honestly, it's like nobody knows the background or the behind the scenes about your job unless you truly been there for a while and you know the ins and outs. So when I say not leaning up against the walls, it's dusty. It's a production environment. It has dust and debris on the walls, chemicals in the air, where if you're on like the office side of the building, it smells less potent. But when you go into the production areas, you're like, oh my gosh, like, how could y'all work in here? It stink, right? And so I had become accustomed to the smell, that it became something where it was normal. Like, prior to the pandemic, outside of me being pregnant in 2019, where I was wearing my face mask, I would casually wear face masks, depending on like what activity I was participating in at work. But like all the time wearing like goggles and stuff like that, but not like something to cover my mouth, unless I was doing like some dusting, like some cleaning, working overtime type of thing, right? I would wear like the actual either like the actual mask and goggles, or I would wear the mask. And then there's some days where I was just like, okay, well, it's just gonna be the goggles, because the goggles were like a part of my regular everyday uniform. And so, like I said, I worked in the office after finding out from July until October. So October 13th was my last day in the office. And from October, I went and I completed my mediation training. Like, they set up some phone calls just to see like how I was doing and all of the things, but initially trying to figure out, okay, how do we go about this particular case, because you're allergic to the chemicals that we use at work. It's almost like it's no way around it. And they said this in the beginning, like, how are you going to get around this? We work in it. I'm talking about, y'all, like, me having to count work that needed to be destroyed. I was like in there, and that's why, like, you can see like the spots on my arms, because like, just imagine having to hand count 1,500 sheets of paper, and it's not like no little sheets of paper, but they're like 50 subject sheets of paper. Or some days it was like me counting 5,000 sheets and having to lean into it so that I can count. Like, I was one of the best they had, I'm not gonna lie. And I get it now, like, dang, I probably should have, you know, played around like everybody else and I took my job so seriously. But it was like, I loved working there because I felt like, okay, I'm finally in my career. So I never thought about, because I know the question is going to come up, like, I started working there in 2016, either 2016, March of 2016, and I didn't find out I was allergic to nickel until July of 2022. So I had been experiencing some, like, it would be a spot here, a spot there, and I would use, like, you know, the over-the-counter topical stuff for, like, eczema, psoriasis, stuff like that. Because, I mean, I'm like, well, dang, I mean, my grandmother would be like, you know, your mother had eczema when she was little and blah, blah, blah. And I've seen, like, what eczema looked like, right? So I took to, you know, I had asked my primary care doctor, like, hey, I need something, my skin is breaking out for some reason, but never really thought like, oh, it's from my job. So that's why it is like a really large gap in between when I first started working there and when I officially found out what the issue and the root cause was, right? But during those times where I would get like breakouts and they would go away, but they would come back somewhere else and it would go away again and come back, I would be praying like, Lord, I don't know what it is, but help me to find out where it's coming from, like where it's truly coming from, because I'm tired of spending unnecessary money on different topical creams, whether I was using my insurance to get the topical creams or I was going to get it myself, from like the oatmeal baths, and it's like natural soaps and fragrant free this and all of that stuff. And I'm like, that stuff add up. And at this time I only had one kid, but then once the other two kids came, it's like, now it's really getting expensive. And so yeah, I'm like, that's where that gap comes in, where 2016 I started, 2022 I found out I was allergic, 2023 is when I put, you know, two and two together. Where it's coming from is 2023, and then we're in 2024 and I'm still having this back and forth discussion with my supervisors about what to do next and what can they do. Long story short, as far as like how they feel, is like, girl, you just another number. And that's me giving like a little summary of how I feel that they are treating me, not something that they, you know, verbalize, but my feelings towards like them actually putting forth the effort and kind of connecting the dots with me. It's almost like, no, you do your own investigation. We gonna sit back and we gonna see what you present to us, you know. So yeah.